using the computer or something like that. And I started thinking about how activities like that kind of have a bad name, in that people think that they're kind of nerdy or lame, and I think that's kind of unfair, and I'm going to tell you why. So, with activities like the ones I've just mentioned, I actually think that there's a big emphasis on adventure and exploration. If you think about some of the big open world video games like Skyrim, or even all the way back to the Mario games, the emphasis is on exploring this new world and making your way through that and discovering stuff. Or in other types of video games, so like driving games or Grand Theft Auto, you're encouraged to explore the real world or something very like it in a way that you wouldn't get to in your day-to-day life. So the emphasis is still on discovery and exploration. When you think about reading, there are series like Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, things like that. They're all focused on imagining and creating this world in your mind, which is great. You know, it's why so many people love reading and so many people love video games. And I just think it's kind of strange that those hobbies get pegged as being nerdy or geeky or not cool. Now, if you think about some other activities like going to clubs or going to see a movie, I think a lot of people would say that they're more normal, in that they are what the majority of people do on weekends. But I think that there's not much emphasis on exploration or challenging yourself with them. When you go to a club, for example, you're going to drink the same drinks every week. You're probably going to see most of the same people. If you have a good time, you might hook up with someone. If you have a bad time, you might end up in a fight, but in general, you can have pretty much the same experience that you did the week before. And then, if you think of going to see a movie, everything that you would be imagining if you were reading a book is up there on the screen. You're still exploring a different world, but there's very little room left for your own imagination. Now, what I think is really interesting is that if you think about how so-called nerdy activities are branching out and developing, you've got stuff like virtual reality, you've got even space travel, all things like that. Even social networking is kind of a new form of exploring the way friendships are constructed. And all of those things, virtual reality, space travel, social networking, are all built around technology. Now, technology is something that not too many years ago was viewed as being very academic, very geeky, very niche, and something that the average person wouldn't have much contact So, physical adventuring is not as easy to do as it once was, while digital exploration is still very easy to do. And I think as stuff like virtual reality becomes more prevalent and becomes easier to use and crucially less expensive, you're going to find more and more people turning to that digital exploration. So I think it's interesting that there are activities that now people, or some people at least, regard as being not very cool, and I think they also view it as being for people who are afraid of the real world. A lot of people say that about things I do when I say that I'm spending the weekend at home playing video games or reading a book. People almost think that I'm afraid to go out in the real world, whereas in reality it's just that I think I have this adventuring bug that I actually find is answered better through these digital means, or in the case of a book, through literature. Now, I was thinking about this, and you know what sparked this thought off? I was clambering up a big mountain, and I actually found myself thinking, oh wow, that view looks like something out of Skyrim. And I thought afterwards that that was so ridiculous that I was thinking that something in the real world looked like a video game instead of the other way around. But that's what kind of sparked this whole thing off in my head. And I don't really have much of a conclusion or even a point as such. This is really just kind of a ramble. But I thought that if you're into the same things as me, like video games and reading and science fiction, you can probably empathise with some of these ideas that perhaps in the past people have viewed your interests as not being very cool. Well, I predict that in the not too distant future that it's those interests that people view as not being very cool that are going to come to be regarded as the new breed of explorers. I mean, if you think about astronauts are one example already. Even though astronauts are extremely well-trained scientists, they still have this rock and roll kind of vibe when people talk about them. And I think you're going to start to see when people become true virtual reality pioneers or find new ways to integrate technology into daily life, I think they're going to come to also be regarded as a new breed of explorers. So, that was pretty much what I was thinking during my walk. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the nature and breathe some fresh air as well, but my mind doesn't like to slow down, so that's why I was coming up with all these ideas, and I did actually try to record them while I was on the walk, but it was windy and I got out of breath climbing up a hill, so it didn't sound very good. So I thought I'd come and do it once I got home. So if some of these ideas are a bit jumbled up and don't make any sense, I can blame the fact that I'm remembering stuff that I thought of a few hours ago. Anyway, I guess all I'm trying to say is here's to the new